Morning.
Hey, good morning.
We're live.
Okay. Yeah, guy. Yeah, guy. Welcome, everybody. Spit. It's Tuesday. It's December 1st, 2020. David Lee Scales, Scott Bass talking surf with you on a weekly basis here on the Spit podcast. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Scott. You know why we're able to do this weekly now?
No, please enlighten me.
Due to the generous subscription dollars of our listeners.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, look, a couple of longtime loyal sponsors have supported us for years. Need Essentials, of course. Now NVS Fins is on the program. But subscription dollars are how we're going to kind of expand into this next phase of going weekly, having video production, all that sort of stuff. So for $5 a month, listeners can get that. They have full access to our archives. They get entered into surfboard giveaways. We'll be doing, I'm going to give away some of my old sets of NVS fins as well. And I know you are too. So lots of kind of giveaway opportunities. For $5 a month, surfsplendorpodcast.com. Go to support the show. I'm giving away an album soft top today from those who contributed or subscribed during the month of November. All of those names are going into an automatic name generator from the internet. Randomly going to select one, and then one person wins that 5'7" fish soft top from album.
Cool. Very good.
Yeah. I see you got a new board.
Yeah, I got a new board.
I could say that every show and it would be true.
Yeah, not really. Not every show, but it kind of comes in phases. But yeah, I got a brand new Hank Warner made me this beautiful Chris O'Rourke caster. And I'm looking forward to waxing it and riding it. Yeah.
I've got a question. You talked about that board last time. And I saw photos of it. It has to channel bottom.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on channel bottom?
Well, they're supposed to provide a couple of things. I believe lift is one of the things, and paradoxically, hold is the other. I think deep channels coming off the tail are more about hold, but it's just like anything with the surfboard design. It all kind of commingles and intermingles and is connected to other parts of the design. And so how the particular component of the design works is relative to how the rest of the board is designed. And, whether it's got, a flat bottom or rolled bottom or what kind of rails, everything connects, right? It's one big design. It's not, this element of the board is supposed to do that. It's all one big deal there. And we'll see how it goes. I'm excited about trying it, though.
Have you ever had a channel bottom that you didn't like?
I can't specifically say that there's a board that because of the channels, I didn't like it, So
I've only had a couple and I've always loved them.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Obviously, design happens in concert. So it wasn't necessarily the channels that were the magic sauce. But whenever I've had them on a board, I've always loved the board.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a fan, I remember we used to have the channel sort of in the middle of the board. And I think that might have been in part because of the glass on fins.
Okay.
Back in the day, and they were just easier to put in the middle of the board rather than in the back half of the board where you had to deal with sanding the fins and everything. But anyway, yeah.
Interesting.
Channel bottoms, bro. Go for it.
Side note.
Yes.
Unrelated.
Yeah.
How was Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was wonderful.
Good.
I baked bread. I think I sent you pictures of my garlic and herb sourdough.
You stepped it up by adding garlic and herbs.
Herbs de Provence.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it looked amazing.
Hey, speaking of amazing, Surfers Are the Worst t-shirts are available at staycovered.com. You can go there now, pick up a leash, pick up a board bag, pick up a scented candle, pick up some wax, and pick up a Surfers Are the Worst t-shirt. Staycovered.com. Staycovered.com. That's where you'll get them.
I've seen a few people commenting, DMing or emailing saying they got shirts.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. You sold out last time, so. I got follow-up, kind of actually tangential to our Mount Rushmore conversation, the ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
Did you see Greg Weber's Instagram post like 2 days ago?
No.
A bunch of people sent it to me. He is hilarious.
Yeah, he is.
Have you ever interviewed him or spent time with him?
Okay. No, I actually did interview him one time with Mike Tabling back in the Surfer Magazine days. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Weber, I absolutely have been meaning to interview and like talk to people around him. And like, I've been supposed to have interviewed him months ago, but I will get around to it.
Yeah.
Because obviously he's in the wave pool business. He's in the artificial reef business. He's in the board building business. Yeah. And this latest Instagram, he wants to make a film. You want to hear what the title of the film is?
Yeah.
Ancient Shapers of the Most Amazing Craft on Earth. And it's actually going to be, he called it a film. It's not going to be a film. It's going to be a mini series. And they're going to profile 2 surfers per episode. The minimum age of entry is 60. So nice. by his own deeming, you're not allowed to participate in this unless you're over 60, which I think is hilarious in and of itself.
I'm buying into that. I'm on board with that. I'm okay with that. I think if you're over 60, you've put in some time and you're worthy to be in the group.
I think that's a fair, that's a fair way to look at it. But I would argue also there's some people who have done equally as influential, maybe even more influential things than some of the names on the list who aren't yet 60.
Yeah.
But I'm fine with it.
Who's on the list? Give me this list.
So funny thing is, he just refers to a lot of them by their first name. Oh. so
Squiggy and Wally and Salty and Jim.
Exactly. And most of them I think we can figure out. So we'll see if you nail it, and then I'll second. Bob.
McTavish.
It's got to be. George.
Greeno.
Got to be. McCoy.
Jeff.
Simon.
Anderson.
MR is clear.
Yes.
Dahlberg.
Yeah, that's easy.
Me.
That would be David Lee Scales.
No, he put me in his own list.
Okay. No, I think he deserves to be there.
Earl Pedersen.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that a Brazilian?
I'm not sure.
That might be.
I would say Australian.
Oh, okay. Earl Patterson or Peterson?
Peterson. Pederson.
Oh, with a D as in dog.
Yeah.
Huh.
Dick Van.
That's Dick Van Stralen.
Yeah, of course. He goes on to say, for the premiere, I'm going to find funding so some older guys can stay overnight at the Angary Resort or at the Karuna nursing home, depending on the level of bum wiping required.
That's pretty good.
And then he goes on to say, hold on, let me switch over slides. Oh, by the way, he included a couple of surf journalists, Nick, which I presume is Carol, Derek H. for Derek Hines, Derek Riley, and Stu from SwellNet.
Yeah.
He says, reasons for doing this. Number 1, it'll be a valuable document. Number 2, some of these old cunts will die in the not too distant future. Number 3, yes, of course, I want to see these legends talk about history, but I also want to see them give each other some shit. Number 4, it'll be fun overall. And number 5, secret reason.
That's pretty cool. I mean, he's onto something, and it's something that you and I have been onto for a long time, which is oral history. Getting people to just talk into a microphone is much more powerful than any other form, perhaps, even maybe more than film, because especially if you're not like doing what we're doing now, which is recording in a video format. If you just do an audio format, a lot of times people let down their guard. And I know you've experienced this. I have too, when we're doing our respective podcast interviews with people, and 20 minutes in, they kind of forget that the microphone's on and they're just talking to you. And that's when the magic is made.
I totally agree. I had that experience with Stretch a couple of weeks ago. The funniest thing, I don't know if you know him very well, but this actually won't come up in his and my conversation, so I'm glad to be able to share it here. But he DM'd me on Instagram. I posted something on Instagram on the podcast account, and he DM'd me. And I was like, and it was like very familiar. And I was like, oh, I guess Stretch listens to the podcast. That's kind of cool, you know? So we're having this banter back and forth. And I'm like, well, dude, anyways, I would love to interview you at some point, you know, when we can do it in person. He goes, yeah, 100%. Let's definitely make that happen. So I nailed down a date a couple of weeks ago, and he goes, sweet, man, are you bringing the car? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to drive up. If that's what you mean, drive up to Santa Cruz. He's like, all right, sweet. Yeah, I can't wait. So I go in his factory, and we start setting up the recording equipment. He goes, so what are we going to talk about? And I go, well, you know, you've listened to the show before, so it's going to be, and he goes, no, never listened. I was like, what? I go, I thought you said, like, you seemed really familiar, like you knew who I was or what I do. And he goes, no, he goes, to be honest with you, I thought you were Richard Phillips. So I had done an interview with New York artist Richard Phillips, who drives this sweet Porsche. Like, he's restored this Porsche. And I posted that promotion for that interview, and apparently Stretch thought that I was Richard Phillips, who is a friend of his. So the entire time talking back and forth, he thought he was talking to Richard, all the way up until I show up and I'm setting up all my podcast equipment. And I noticed when I showed up, he looked at me kind of weird. It was in that moment that he realized I was not the guy he thought that I was. So he said, but he was kind enough to still take 2 hours to do the thing. But it was exactly as a result of what I just said. It was what you said. He was like gun shy. You know, he didn't know who I was. He didn't know what level of kind of engagement I wanted. He'd probably never listened to a podcast before, full stop. So
you're Richard Phillips's assistant is who you were.
Exactly. So he was disappointed, firstly. But for the first 20 minutes, he was just like, arms crossed, like not interested in engaging. And thankfully we got super deep after that. Like, once he kind of realized the level of interest that I had in him and his story, he fully engaged.
Yeah.
But I agree with you in that the oral storytelling is, you get inflections in people's voice. You hear them, I don't know, there's a grace that you give them. I feel like if you took transcripts of, let's say, Joe Rogan's podcast and just printed it, so much could be taken out of context. Whereas he gets away with saying a lot of things on air because you can hear him reasoning his way through a thought and even backpedaling and offering a little like counterpoint in there that probably would get cut out in print. Yeah. So I think it's a more humanizing way to convey information, for sure. And you as the listener become more sympathetic to the person you're listening to.
Yeah. And I just think that when the camera's off, like when the camera's on, there's some pretty savvy people that are like, okay, the camera's on. It's time to be, me, the fake me. Here I go. I want you to know who I am. Yeah. Let's wipe the spittle away from the sides of my mouth and make sure that, and when you're just sitting down over a cup of tea in your home, usually you can get to places that normally we wouldn't get to if there was a full setup.
Totally. I also find people like to talk about themselves.
Oh, yeah.
It's everyone's favorite topic of conversation.
You're looking at them.
It's funny. Since we started doing Spit 7 years ago, or however long it's been, my whole idea with the podcast was like, I just want to interview people and kind of get out of the way of interesting people. And then this has required me to actually share opinion and like reveal, my own worldview and thoughts. And I never really, took me a very long time to get comfortable with that. I'd much rather just kind of like tee up questions to people and let them reveal themselves.
Yeah. Blend into the wallpaper.
Yeah. Back to Mount Rushmore of shapers.
Yes.
So the idea for Weber is these are shaper specific, even though he added a couple of journalists in there. Peisel chimed in and he offered a few from America because apparently all of those were Australian.
Yeah.
Peisel said Yater, Merrick, Linden, Skip Fry, Steve Liss, Michael Barron, Stussy, Matt Moore, John Bradbury, Rawson, Chuck Andrews, Jeff Bushman. What are your thoughts on those?
Well, you mean to be in the podcast?
No, to be in the Mount Rushmore of, to be in Greg Weber's shaping series, iconic shapers who have to be 60 years or older.
They're all absolutely worthy.
Yeah.
I mean, Bradbury's passed away.
You have to be a profile piece on him.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm assuming that he wants these people to show up and be interviewed. So,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, look, there is a never-ending list of completely legit guys. I actually like the idea of kind of underground or underrated guys too, that you wouldn't even know who they were. You know, like a Mike Croteau type. You know, guys like Greg Weber go, oh my God, this guy's the shit. Probably like that Pedersen guy.
Yeah.
I bet that was a guy that mentored Greg Weber. I'm just assuming, I don't know. But every shaper has that guy. And a lot of times they're sort of under the radar, you know, like, you know, there's just guys.
Well, I feel like even in Peisel's list, I feel like Matt Moore could be that guy. I don't think anybody knows who Matt Moore is.
I would love to interview Matt Moore. He would be great.
What about Chuck Andrews?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, all those guys are totally worthy, you know. I mean, it's just, you know.
It's interesting too how like Bushman, for example, was such a prevalent name when I was a kid because obviously Poncho Sullivan was riding those boards, but really I haven't seen much of him in the last decade or two, and I know he's still shaping boards, but you know, and he might even be making as many boards now as he was then. It was just having a team rider catapults you into a certain level.
A couple of things, I might be wrong here, but let me opine that, you know, when the Tour Pros showed up in Hawaii for years and years, they went, oh, I'm getting a Bushman, I'm getting a Rawson, I'm getting a Tokoro, I'm getting an Arakawa. And as the surfboard marketplace sort of homogenized with like Matt Biolos, Channel Islands, you know, maybe JS or DHD, you know, Peisel, you know, it's sort of like, it might have washed away some of those more local guys, you know, like Jeff Timponi or, you know, Bushman, right? Like, so I wonder if a lot of these guys maybe lost some of that local hierarchy or flavor when guys from Australia or California flew in, you know, because of, as I say, this sort of homogenization of what the World Tour people were riding.
Yeah.
You know, it used to be a real thing that you would like literally like send Dick Brewer a list and be like, hey, I'll be there in 2 months. Please have these 8 boards ready for me. And you might even send Brewer a list of 4, and you would send Tokoro a list of 4, and you would send, you know, Glenn Pang a list, and, you know, whoever it was, and Bushman or who, you know what I mean? Rawson would get, and so you would have your guy, and you would be like, I only ride these boards in Hawaii, you know. And now you're like, maybe you're going, I'm going to have Matt make me a bunch of boards. I mean, Mason Ho is riding only, for the most part, right? Matt Biolos boards in Hawaii. So, and it's not to say that those boards aren't epic. They're probably, I mean, from what I can tell, they're incredible boards. Every Matt Biolos board I've ever had works insane. So maybe that's part of it, right? This homogenization.
Yeah. I think the buying a board for the local break was never more prevalent than it was in Hawaii. Like, Hawaii is the place where you would want a board shaped by a local guy. And I know when the World Tour would come to Trestles, people would get Biolos's and Timmy Patterson's or whatever else, but not to the same degree that people would mix up their quiver going to Hawaii. I mean, Gabriel Medina is synonymous with Johnny Cabianca, but in Hawaii, he rides Tokoros, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was, it wasn't unique to Hawaii, but it was certainly a lot more prevalent in Hawaii.
And I would like to see that fleshed out and excavated some more. If in fact that still takes place, if in fact the guys are like, okay, I'm going to the North Shore, I'm going to lean on an expert. I'd like to see that expert, like the Jeff Bushmans of the world, get some credit where credit is due, you know?
Well, dude, I mean, honestly, it's important to ride the right board in those types of waves. Being undergunned or just mismatched with, like, if you're riding a groveler and you paddle out at somewhere that's kind of meaty, it's not even worth surfing. Like, you will absolutely have a terrible experience. Yeah. So it all becomes really relevant once you paddle out.
And I mean, Pat Rawson's one of those guys. Pat Rawson's absolutely probably the guy. Like, when you think about it, I mean, Pat Rawson was making world champions boards in, you know, the late 70s, going into the 80s.
I mean, honestly, for everybody from the Ho
Larry
brothers,
Bertleman,
all the way
Buttons,
through to the Irons brothers, Mason included.
Yeah. So, by the way, I watched the recent Mason Ho edit. It's epic.
Always, right?
The little sandbar edit, where he's surfing little sandbar waves. It's super fun.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of Hawaii, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Trivia question. With the WSL World Tour for the 2021 season about to kick off on the 4th, which is 3 days from now, Thursday, in Honolulu Bay, in Hawaii. Here's my question. What is the connection, David, between a Hawaiian kahuna and the Rolling Stones?
That's a tough one. It's going to have to do with the Rolling Stones going to Hawaii, maybe, or maybe a song lyric. I have no idea.
This is a tough one. Their 1981 Tattoo You World Tour, a tour supporting their new album, Tattoo You, was the first tour to be sponsored ever in the history of rock and roll.
Wow.
Hoven Perfume paid the Rolling Stones $4 million. And that entire tour was put together by a guy named Kimo Kekeahunavale.
No way.
He's a Hawaiian kahuna, a shaman, and an impresario. And he served as the executive producer of the Tattoo You tour, convinced Mick Jagger and the Stones to take on the sponsorship. And Kekeahuna never sponsored another rock act again because, as he said, how can you top touring with the gods? So this Hawaiian kahuna was the executive producer of the Tattoo You tour. And by the way, the same guy did do other sponsorship tours, Julio Iglesias with Coca-Cola and Willie Nelson with Wrangler jeans, but never again sponsored a rock and roll tour because he had reached the mountaintop.
What's his cut on that deal? You take 10%?
I don't know. That seems to make sense. 10%.
I'd go minimum of 10. This deal's never been done. I'm the one inventing this deal. Make it 20.
He's the guy with the relationship prop that put it together. So Kimo Kekeahunavale, the Hawaiian kahuna, shaman, and impresario.
Where'd you pull up this nugget?
I was doing a friggin' deep dive on. So the Stones put out this album that I really love. It's 1973's Goat's Head Soup, right? Critics sort of panned the album, but I'm a big fan of it. And in this 50th anniversary edition that they put out, or maybe it's the 40th anniversary, I'm not sure. 73, 83, 93, 03, 13. 45th anniversary? I don't know.
I was going to say we could figure it out by a simple math equation.
They recently put out the deluxe version of Goat's Head Soup. And on this version that you get with it is an entire 1973 live Brussels tour. The tour stopped they did a European tour, and one of the stops was Brussels. And this is the most incredible live Rolling Stones disc that I've ever heard. And it's super rare. They actually were going to put it out, and they had to pull it back for legal reasons. So they just released it.
Wow. And
it's superb sound quality. And the best thing about it is that it's Mick Taylor on lead guitar, who's just absolutely taking the shine of this tour, and he absolutely dominates. And it's very rare that you hear a live Stones album with such sort of prolific lead guitar. It's usually Ronnie Wood and Keith Richards sort of mixing back and forth and sort of doing this dueling rhythm and lead thing. And a lot of times what stands out is the piano playing the keyboards and the horns. The saxophone sort of will take over the lead while Keith just kind of does the rhythm, and Ronnie will mix in some very eloquent, but sort of like not over the top lead guitar. But on this tour, Mick Taylor absolutely shines. And in fact, Keith Richards at the end of the tour sort of complained about it, because it was kind of, Mick Taylor was getting so much, the critics were just hailing Mick Taylor's lead guitar. So anyway, I just listened to this the other day and I'm just like blown away. And look, I'm not a big fan of like live Stones concert CDs. I mean, you've heard one, you've heard them all. But this one I heard and I just went, wow. So if you're a Stones freak and you really appreciate what Mick Taylor did for the Stones, this live tour is incredible. It's incredible. It's just Mick Taylor at his finest with Billy Preston and Nicky Hopkins, and it's just really, really, really good.
Do you know when the Stones were founded?
I mean, no, not the exact. I want to say like 62 or 63 or something like that.
So they were 10 years old or 10 years into their band at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, 62. I just looked it up. Because I was thinking I could see their early concert kind of performances being tighter, before they got super, super famous and did the same thing 200 nights a year for decades on end. I guess in one sense it could be tight because of repetition, but there's probably a certain energy that they had in 73 because they were still young and it was all still relatively new to them, that maybe you want to get out of a modern concert album from them.
Yeah, for sure. The modern concert, it might be a little bit overly polished perhaps, but
yeah, there's
and
less,
I've heard
less personality in it even.
You and I have both heard live shows of early Stone stuff that's actually kind of almost too rough.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got the sense that they were partying too hard or something. Maybe they just weren't like as tight. But this one, that's why this one stood out to me. In 1973, I've seen there was one where they toured Dallas. They tour in Texas for one of the albums. Anyway, this one's just incredible. Mick Taylor really, really shines. And I've just been gushing over it to friends on text and stuff. Like, you got to get this Goat's Head Soup Deluxe album. It's insane because of this.
You mentioned Tattoo You, 1981. What were you doing when Tattoo You came out?
I actually saw that tour. I saw them at Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego in 1981.
No way.
Oh yeah. I was a junior in high school. And who opened for them was like Loverboy, the Jay Giles Band. It was one of those concerts where they had like 5 acts before the Stones came out. It was like an all-day event.
Yeah.
Some other bands that I can't remember right now, but
fair enough.
It was pretty good.
You want to know what I was doing in 1981?
You weren't even born yet.
I was a zygote.
You were the twinkle in your father's eye.
Exactly. Well, that was a wonderful segue into us conversation about Hawaii.
Right. The WSL World Tour. It starts. By the way, I signed up for the Fantasy Surfer on the WSL Fantasy Surfer. I've never done it before because I'm in a league with a bunch of guys. We throw a bunch of money in, and it's a lot of fun. But the WSL Fantasy demands that you pick a women's team. So I'm actually like involved in women's surfing, and it's actually simple. You only pick 4 women. So I'm involved with the WSL women this year.
Remember we used to actually do a Fantasy Surfer on Surfer Magazine's platform, and like everybody would put in, I think $5 or $20 a game event, and then the winner took all. And I used to smoke the women's side. I used to win the women's side all the time.
Yeah, you did your research. There's no doubt.
And you were like, I'm not going to play the women's side. I'm like, all right, you quietly lose over there in the men's side all the time, and I'll just clean up over here by myself.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to do the Survival League.
Well, I'm still open to that. I just sort of haven't done the back work on it, you know.
Okay, I looked it
Actually,
up. We should
yeah.
do it, or
Okay.
no, you should do it.
Yeah.
If you can set up the spit team,
Yeah.
Listeners can join. I'm going to assign this homework to Scott today. So any
Okay.
listeners who catch this episode in a few hours from now or anytime beyond should be able to join. Here's the rules. I'll lay them out to you, Scott. They're very simple. There's only 4. You pick one surfer per event.
Right.
For you to get points, that surfer must advance past the round of 32. You cannot not pick the same surfer twice throughout the season. So, if you decide you want to pick Italo Ferrer going into pipe, well, then
that's it.
You're not going to be able to use him when we go to a beach break that he might thrive at. So maybe you would pick somebody like Jeremy Flores going into pipe, because you're not going to pick him anywhere else on tour. So that's kind of the one little interesting part about this, is that you can't pick the same surfer twice throughout the season. The winner takes $1,000 at the end of the year. It's $20 to buy in. You only spend $20 once. You get to play the full season, and $1,000 goes to the winner. There's no prize for second place. It's just winner takes all. So Survival League is where you can go. I think there's a dash between those words, but
there is.
Yeah,
there is a dash.
Survival-League, and join. It's easy to, like, one click to throw in the $20, and then look for the spit team or whatever, spit group.
They're supposed to do Taylor, the guy who's running it, wants to do a revenue share with us too. So there might be a promo code that would probably be spit, but I don't even know if it exists. But regardless, I will definitely sign up for it. And,
hey, let's call the promo code spit right now, and we'll get Taylor to implement that.
Yeah. And so importantly, they want us to make a pick this week, because look, the pipe event is going to kick off this week.
Yep.
Right? No, a week from today.
The next time you and I record. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the waiting period opens.
It's going to be pumping. Though it's going to be pumping, like, in good conditions. Like the first couple days of Honolulu Bay and pipe, and it's going to be good. I've been looking at it. Everyone's been looking at it, and there's a couple massive swells hitting Hawaii. In fact, this Wednesday, Jaws should be breaking. So let's go ahead and make a pick right now. You mentioned Jeremy Flores. Is that going to be your pick, David, for this event? Do you think Jeremy Flores will make it through 2 rounds into the round of 32?
I hate that I'm being forced to pick, because I so don't want to tip my hand.
Wait, let me make a quick change there. The surfer has to advance through the round, so you got to get through round 32. You can't just lose in round 32. You have to get through round 32.
Okay, I'm going to talk my way through it before I commit to a pick. And to be honest, I don't know if I'm going to commit to a pick. I have a feeling Taylor said, like, hey, you guys should make a pick, because he wants us to talk about his thing, but we're already talking about his thing. So what are you afraid I don't know if I want to tilt my hand, because I'm not going to give people all this excellent intel. And then
you're going to be in, you mean you're actually going to pay the $20 and be involved in it?
Heck yeah.
Okay. I see what you mean. That's a good point. Why would I? So this is where we could throw people off our scent.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I've got a pick for everybody right now. Connor Coffin. Go long on Connor Coffin.
You hate Connor Coffin. That is amazing.
Or you know what? Better yet, Peterson Crisanto. I see him finaling. You know what? Set up a second account, put in another $20, and pick Peterson Crisanto again.
I'm going to second that Peterson Crisanto pick. It's hard to go against your deep dive research. I know you've looked into this. Peterson's definitely a finalist.
Clearly. Look, he's a solid 5'4", so every wave is going to look twice as big on him. That'll add to his score line.
Right.
So if you want real talk, I'm not going to tell you who I'm going to pick, because I might want these guys for later in the season.
Yeah.
But Gabriel Medina is the guy who you would put money on. Gabriel Medina, if you just ran the stats statistically, would win the event.
The only thing about Gabe Medina is that he, as you mentioned year after year, he's a slow starter usually on the tour.
Yeah.
Like at Snapper when they're in Australia. And of course, this is a different year. They're starting at pipe. And you're right. As you mentioned last time or the time before, about 2 weeks ago, I was sort of poo-pooing the idea that they're starting at pipe, but now I'm getting behind it. I'm kind of excited about it. It is a really exciting way to kick off the tour. I frankly am pretty excited, I got to admit. And I'm kind of excited about the women at Honolulu because it's going to be, it could be 8 to 12 feet.
That'll be amazing. I would love to see that. So yes, I'm excited about the pipe start, but also this is a gift for the WSL. Not that coronavirus is a gift for anybody. However, they announced this tour restructuring before coronavirus, and they were met with, the internet always gives them flack no matter what, but they could get a lot of flack for that. Now in hindsight, what will be remembered was we started the year with pipe, and that was the 2020. That was the year of coronavirus. So coronavirus will get the blame for this reworked tour schedule. And it looks like a genius move. When you look at it in hindsight, it looks like, oh, the tour had to get reshuffled. And then they started with pipe. Wow, that's a great bang to start off the season, rather than just losing the entire season and showing up at Snapper in March. So I think in hindsight, it'll bode well for them.
This is one of the greatest conspiracy theories you've ever come up with. Dirk Ziff created the coronavirus.
the Waterman of the Year for 2019 created the coronavirus.
Wow.
So when it comes down to our picks, though, last year, Idolo won the event and the world title. He finaled the pipe with Gabriel Medina. Idolo's actually been in Hawaii now for at least a week, surfing all day, every day. So that is something to note. Gabriel, I think, is headed that way now. I don't think he's actually landed yet. Kanoa's en route. Kelly Slater's probably there by now. I saw that he was en route a few days ago. Obviously, John lives at Pipeline. So being there early in the season has always mattered. And this year, I would argue it matters more than ever. So those are important details, I would say.
Well, again, Spit's the promo code. Survival League. It's SURFIVAL-league. SURFIVAL-league. And pick one surfer to make it through round 32, and you move on to the next event. And if you don't, you're out. And then the winner at the end. I'm not sure. I'll have to talk to Taylor about if there's a tie, because I imagine there will be a tie, how they break that tie. But
I got a couple of questions for you, Scott, since you haven't made a pick yet.
Yeah.
Would you put money on Slater?
That's such an interesting one, because when I was doing my fantasy team, I was looking at Slater and going, well, God, I've been riding the Slater bandwagon to a mid-level finish for quite a few years.
Yep, you sure have.
He's been in Indo. He's been surfing great, right?
Yeah.
Would I pick him for my survival? This is the one time you need to pick him.
Well, we'll look at the other stops on tour. When are you not? You're
not going to pick him in like Brazil.
Right. So I might pick him for G-Land. I might pick him for Chopu.
Yeah.
But J-Bay, maybe.
Snapper.
Not going to pick him at Snapper. So Pipe might be the one time you pick Slater.
One of three, right? Is what you're saying. G-Land and Chopes.
So G-Land even I'm questioning, because honestly.
I think G-Land's the one. He spent more time out of G-Land than any of the guys on tour, I bet.
I think G-Land will come naturally to Idolo and Gabriel.
Yeah, but I'm saying Slater, relative to the rest of the 29 or 32 guys, Slater's got G-Land figured out. And you need to know that wave, I think.
But he hasn't been there in a long time.
We don't know that.
I do. I know everything. Okay, what about so Slater looks like maybe a potential pick for Pipe. Okay, even though he's been surfing a ton in Bali, yeah, you're right. Actually, that absolutely matters. I was just going to say he hasn't having like the competitive fire is going to matter, but he has that innately, and he has more
Yes.
experience with that than anybody, and he's been surfing more than anybody. So Slater could be a great pick, actually. Kanoa Igarashi, his stats at pipe are pretty staggering.
I know.
He's a finalist at, I think, twice. Yeah, because he finaled against Michel Perez that one year, and then Jeremy Flores, I think.
Yeah, he's definitely a good sleeper pick. Because it's the first event, I want to like, this is the one where you're like, I want to pick one. I mean, nobody wants to lose the first friggin' event of the year, so you're like, I'll just go with John just to get through the first event, you know.
So I mentioned 2 weeks ago that Tokyo Rising, John's film, was going to debut on Amazon.
Yeah.
And I called it my must-see moment, even though it hadn't come out yet. I watched it this week. It is absolutely a must-see moment. If you want to get fired up for this 2021 season, Tokyo Rising, it's so good. And every time I see John surf, I forget how good John surfed. Like, I watch it and I'm just like, well, I knew he's a 2-time world champion. He's arguably my favorite surfer. And then I watch him and I go, wow, he's better than I remember. It's freaking crazy.
Hold that thought. Yeah, so it's funny, is John Florence the most, like, he's almost the most under-marketed world champion of all the world champions. It's like you kind of forget about John. Like, it's almost, and maybe part of it's because, you know, the surf industry is sort of you know, contracted, and I don't know. If you think of all the world champions, I just feel like he's not in my mind's eye as much as, you know, Andy Irons or Kelly Slater or
I think it might be because he's still on the ascent. It feels like whatever potential John had, it's still kind of unfulfilled. Like, we expected 10 world titles from him, and he's too deep, and 2 Eddies, by the way. And so,
but what's he without?
Kelly Slater's record, you know?
No, he's without a pipeline Masters title.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Which is actually the big story.
Ooh, yeah, that's good.
That's sort of the under the radar story here, is what kind of pressure is on him to win the Pipe Masters. And I would suggest to you, none. But I mean, on some level, I mean, all the pipe specialists have won there. Jamie O'Brien's a pipeline master. Of course, Kelly Slater, all the guys that considered themselves pipe guys have won it.
Well, when I talk about him being on the ascent, I think he views it the same way, where he knows he's going to win pipe. And so he doesn't really put a ton of pressure on himself. You don't think he will?
No, I hope he does. I hope he does it this year. I want him to get everything that is deserved of him. And, but to say he knows he's going to do it is kind of gnarly. I mean, let me ask you this. At what point in his career do you start to feel pressure that you haven't won pipeline? I mean, how many years in? Isn't he like 8 years in or 10? How long has he even been on? So at what point do you go, oh shit, that pipeline title's getting farther and farther away? He's not closer to it. He's farther away from it.
It's a great question. We would have expected it to happen already, for sure.
Right. Right.
I'd say when you turn 30 is when you start to feel the pressure. And I think in every interview I've heard from him, and certainly in this Tokyo Rising piece, he's so calm, and there seems to be a much bigger plan in place. And he doesn't view any of these goals as like, this is my life's achievement, like my heart's beating through my throat to like try to get through this goal. It all seems just like a baby step, from one baby step to the other. Like, yeah, I want a world title because that's a baby step towards 10, so that's what I'm going to do. And I feel like Pipe is just one of many baby steps for him. And I think that bodes well for, I don't know, for achieving goals, and like also for his casual kind of approach to surfing.
I would
So
agree with that, but again,
is this year the year?
I would ask you, at what point does it not become a baby step? At what point does it almost become a problem?
Yeah. Well, look, there's more competition now. Each year, there's more competition than there was before, because this year he's got Jack Robinson.
Exactly.
Like,
that's who
so
I was thinking. What if Jack Robinson wins it?
And like, so Kanoa's still on the ascent too. And so is Gabriel, and Idolo is, because Idolo's got to back up his thing. And
I would suggest to you, there's a lot of guys, Ryan Callanan, Ethan Ewing.
Jordy and
Jordy is on. Do you think Jordy's on the ascent?
I don't know, but the description that you gave about when does it become an albatross, for Jordy it is. And so he's going to be scratching people's eyes out. Julian Wilson, same thing. He's a pipe master, but he doesn't have a world title yet. So he's going to be fighting with the same amount of ferocity. Like, there's never been more competition for John to win that thing. But John, you watch John out there and you go, oh shoot, like he is better. He's that much better.
As we look at the new season kicking off, you mentioned Julian Wilson, and I thought to myself, gosh, if there's one guy that's sort of totally under the radar, for me at least right now, it's Julian Wilson, who's a guy who's in the top 5 the last, he's probably, I don't know the exact stats, but he's always up there. And, it seems like we're talking about Idolo, we're always talking about Gabe, we're talking about John, we're talking, of course, about Jack Robinson. I often mention Ethan Ewing as a guy. There's Ryan Callanan, there's Kanoa. Never are we going, Julian Wilson. 3 or 4 years ago, I was claiming Julian Wilson was going to be the world champion. He's kind of like at that place where it's like the descent.
You can only have your heart broken so many times, Scott. Hey, look, shame on Julian the first 8 times. Shame on me the 9th time.
I think for 2020, as I recall, I suggested to you that Kanoa Igarashi was going to win the 2020 world title.
You certainly did. How you feeling about that pick?
It's still in the running. It still could happen.
No, he's not the 2020 world champ.
Nobody is. So I didn't lose. Let me just put it that way.
Okay. I got another question.
Yeah.
Chloe and Dina.
I think Chloe's he's kind of in that Julian Wilson, Jordy Smith place for me. Like, he could do it. He could be a world champion. He has the talent, but is he on the backside? It's kind of like, I think every guy that is on the backside of his legacy, they either have that letting go moment, that sort of Kelly Slater, like, Barton Lynch talked about it. When Barton Lynch won the world title, he was really close the year before, a couple of years before, he was supposed to win it and it was snatched from him. And he went into that world title year going into Hawaii and kind of was just like, you know what? It's kind of over. Like, there was no expectation. There was no pressure. There was a letting go moment, the moment that Kelly Slater talks about a lot, where he just kind of like looked at things from a different perspective. And because it was liberating, his performance rose to the occasion. So the question is, can Julian, can Chloe, can Jordy, can they have that letting go moment? Can they see things from in sort of through a new prism? And that's yet to be determined.
It certainly is. I think Pipe will reshuffle the rankings in a way that we haven't seen before when we've always started on the Gold Coast. Because I could see Chloe's always going to make the quarters be or better at snapper, let's say. At pipe, I'm not convinced that he will, and especially if it's big pipe. Like, I could see Kanoa leaving pipeline in last place and then be fighting back throughout the rest of the season. And I could see somebody like you mentioned, Ryan Callanan, making the quarters, you know,
Yeah.
or Seth Moniz making the quarters.
Yes.
And so I think we're going to see a totally different tour just by virtue of for the rest of the season, by virtue of the fact that we're starting at Pipeline. Owen Wright could be a sneaky pick.
I don't think that's sneaky at all. I think that's kind of it. I see him as a quarterfinalist for sure.
Adrian Buchan.
No way. Is he on tour still?
Do you remember him?
I thought he was the commissioner by now or something.
I mean, honestly, he could, if the waves are good, actually, I'm going to reserve that comment. Ace can get 8s and better at pipe. I don't see Ace going backdoor. And I could see a lot of people who have the ability to do both and pulling out a heat over him because of it.
Look, I don't mean to degrade Ace Buchan, but he's certainly the old guy on tour these days. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, he is a formidable opponent from a tactical standpoint.
Instead of looking at it like who's going to do good, think about it like this: who's going to do bad?
I'll tell you.
Kaio?
No, I think Kaio could actually be a sneaky pick. Kaio's amazing at waves like that. So I think the ones that you would automatically not pick, Matt McGillivray, Alex Ribeiro, David Silva, Morgan Sabilik, Mikey Wright, I like, but I don't see him really doing much at pipe. Jadson Andre, Pedersen Crisanto, Connor Coffin, I would all throw out. I love Wade Carmichael. He's actually my must-see moment this week, but I don't see him doing well at pipe.
Dude, Wade Carmichael. Every time I watch that guy surf, I say to myself, how huge is he going to be when he's 40 years old? Like, I watch him surf and I'm like, holy shit, that guy, he's probably only 23. When he's 40, he's going to be 260 pounds. He's going to be doing the gnarliest, like, J-Bay man hacks you've ever seen. Imagine the turns he does now, but with 80 more pounds on his body at like 6-foot J-Bay. Dude, it's going to be insane. There could be a whole new tour just based around him surfing, if in fact he can paddle and get to his feet.
There's going to be new weather patterns based on the amount of water he displaces into the atmosphere.
Right?
Dude, what kind of board construction are they making for him at Rusty to support?
Yeah, he gets like old school, like 10-ounce boat cloth.
Double Volan with carbon.
Yeah. How many boards does that guy go through?
Yeah. That's why I didn't have a board sponsor forever.
How much do you think he weighs now?
I don't know. I don't think he's like heavier than Jordy necessarily. He's just more compact. He's like a pit bull.
He's gnarly. Is it just me? But every time I see him surf, I go, when that guy's 40, he's going to be insane. He's either going to be like at the pub. He'll probably be definitely at the pub no matter what. But will he be leaving the pub to go surf, or he might be having a lawn bowl? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, if he just keeps surfing, hopefully he can stay in fighting shape.
So that edit's amazing. That's my must-see moment as well.
Mine too. Mint is what it's called. It's amazing. 10 minutes of just raw power from, by the way, great use of his time during COVID.
Looks like South Stradbroke and some other spots.
Yeah. So
anyway, I interrupted your thoughts on half of the Pipe Masters. Who's not going to do well?
I think I covered it all.
Yeah.
But also, is everybody going to make it to pipe?
Wow. Great question.
I don't think so. I don't think they are.
I'm not sure. I wonder if they're getting some super uber duper like special waivers from the county, some sort of professional sport wavering, or I don't know, man, but it's ever changing, the county, city of Honolulu and the governor regarding COVID restrictions and what they're going to do moving forward. So who won't make it? You got to be there already for sure. If you're not there, you're done.
Exactly.
And Kelly might not be there.
I think so. I saw Kelly a couple of days ago was on the move. So I think he's there by now, but
I don't know, man. I read last week those new COVID restrictions where you have to board the plane with a negative. You can't board the plane saying, I've had the test and I'm going to wait results until I get it. You have to board the plane with a negative, or when you get off the plane, you are 14 days.
Right. And I've heard horror stories of people getting hung up for 2 weeks quarantined in places. And by the way, taking on all of that added expense too, which isn't a deal for Kelly, but if you're just a regular random traveler, it is. So the other thing is, if you're not there already, you just need time out at Pipeline. Like if you've had a full year off and you're showing up in Hawaii 3 days before the event starts or 5 days before the event starts, you are simply not going to advance through heats, especially with John. Yeah,
well, it's going to be 8 to 12 feet too. It's not like it's going to be easy.
Joke. It's no joke. I think we're going to see a real disparity between the top of the tour and the bottom of the tour. No offense, Matt McGillivray.
Which suggests Seth Moniz maybe, who's a full-on local here. You know, John, obviously. Yeah. I'm sure Jack Robinson's already over there.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. I hope that there's going to be a couple of back-to-back swells. I hope the last part we get some magic at the last end here so that the semis and the finals have some amazing pipe surfing.
Yeah. Well, this could also really solidify a thought that we've shared over and over, which is the need for a smaller tour. Because if we see this huge disparity between the guys that I named that aren't in contention for winning this thing and the 10 guys that we talked about for the first 10 minutes, like if the top 10 guys are triply as good as the bottom 20, why even have them on the same tour?
Exactly.
You know? And I think that we will see that in this event. It will be a tripling of skill that's better.
I got an interesting question for you. Filipe Toledo, if he makes the semifinals or better at Pipeline this year, considering that it's going to be epic and big, is he your world champion?
No, he is not my world champion, but I will stop making fun of him.
Okay. Because I guess obviously what I'm assuming here is that, okay, he's matured as a professional surfer in big, giant, meaty Pipeline. He's made the semifinals so that he is out, over the tipping point. We can consider him now, obviously a top contender.
I will consider him a top contender, yes, and I will stop making fun of him. But I will not consider him. He won't be my world title.
I didn't know you were making fun of him.
No, I wasn't making fun of him.
But I was criticizing him with the eye of somebody that's involved in watching this stuff.
Yeah, that's more accurate. What I will say is perhaps Filipe has developed more skill and prowess at bigger waves, or let's say waves of consequence. That doesn't mean that you can be competitive in that environment. So even if we've seen him paddle out and get a couple of bombs here and there, that's very different than what Gabe is doing out there. In Tokyo Rising, John talks about surfing pipe last year. He was doing it with an injury just so that he could shore up his qualification for the Olympics. That's what the whole film is about. And Kelly was slowly gaining on him through the year. So John was like, dude, I got to put my knee brace on and go make a couple heats at Pipeline just to secure my spot. Well, he ends up against Gabriel Medina in, I believe, the semifinals. And John had walked through a lot of his previous heats, but Gabriel Medina, he goes, the tactics that Gabriel was implementing out there were unbelievable. He's like, with priority, going on waves that he doesn't need, just so I look back and I miss the next thing that's coming. Like, it was out of control. And so that's kind of the difference between Filipe. Filipe is able to do that at Snapper, right? Or at Trestles. But to have that level of comfort in waves of consequence, to be able to operating those many levels ahead, is you have to just be so comfortable out there. You have to be not scared at all. And I don't see Filipe ever getting to that point. Jack Robinson's there, Gabriel's there, Idolo's there, Kelly's there, John's there, but maybe Jeremy is there, but not a lot of other people.
You brought up something that I think is fascinating and needs to be brought out into the light by the commentary team in a real way. And that's this idea of tactics, and Gabe Medina using tactics, and John noting it. And to me, I would suggest to you that there's probably 28 of those 32 that don't even think in that realm. They're just like, yeah, I'm going to put on my heat, and what do I got to do to win? I got to catch 2 waves to the beach or whatever. They're not thinking on that next level. Gabe Medina is playing four-dimensional chess with guys who are playing checkers in many ways.
For
And
sure.
those tactics that John speaks about are proof of that, And I was speaking when I interviewed Barton Lynch, we were talking about, how would you surf against John? And he was specifically said, hey, look what Zeke Lau did. That's how I would surf against John Florence every single time.
Yeah.
I would paddle right up to him and get in his grill and just, do that Zeke Lau thing. Because you're going against John. What are your odds of winning unless you shake the guy somehow?
Right. So John, up until that point with Zeke Lau, has solely relied on his talent. And he did really well with it, And so many people are enamored by him. His own competitors are enamored by him. And so they go out there just kind of glossy eyed, like, oh, I'm with John right now. So good on Zeke for exposing that. But I think John came back with a new level of.
Well, I agree with your last part there. In many ways, Zeke Lau sort of fortified John's game.
Yeah, exactly.
We hope that John went, whoa, okay, shit, this is what it was like in the 80s on tour. Okay, I didn't even know. Most people were just bowing down to me and pretty much anointing me. And now Zeke's kind of in my grill and making me to look at things and tactically thinking about things. And Gabe Medina too. So, and that too speaks to why I would love to just see a 12-man tour. Now I know that's not realistic. It's never going to happen. I get it. But, we need the commentary team to go, hey man, there are tactics going down for a few of these guys. And here's what's happening. And here's why it's happening. And somebody who, I don't know who it is on that commentary team, and it might not exist, needs to break that down.
Totally.
And frankly, I could see somebody like Barton Lynch being that guy.
Yeah, I agree. Barton is that guy. But you're absolutely right. There's only a few guys who have that like the amount of talent required to win a world title, plus the amount of tactical mind to also do that. And
to be able to break it down.
That's honestly well, you're talking about from a commentary standpoint, but I'm talking about from a surfing standpoint. That really solidifies the difference of why Jordy hasn't won his world title, why Julian hasn't won his world title. Kanoa remains to be seen. Like if he can kind of get into that headspace, because I watch Kanoa surf, he's phenomenal. Like there's not any hiccup in his game at all. Maybe big wave barrels, but I mean, he's so fundamentally sound. It's crazy. So if he had that Gabriel cutthroat mindset, he could win a world title.
Yeah, the ability to adapt to situations from a tactical standpoint. Like we always say, look, they're all talented, physically talented. Mentally, where's their game?
Who's an interesting one is Kanoa Igarashi,
Totally.
Because I see him understanding the four-dimensional chess on an unemotional level. Yes. Like he knows it and it's been a part of his life, but he doesn't have the
it's got like a Zen quality almost. Yeah,
he doesn't have the steely-eyed like cutthroatness that
at least
Gabriel
not in the
has.
open, out in the open. I think internally, he does have that though.
Which is like, it's kind of an interesting case study because when he won Bali, the guy had a conniption. Like he showed more emotion than I've ever seen a surfer show. Like he was possessed in his celebration, almost embarrassingly so. So he's absolutely emotional about it. But when you watch him surf heats, when you watch him stand up on a wave when he needs an 8 and there's 5 seconds left, there isn't any nervousness.
All business, yeah.
It's all business. Yeah, but deep down he cares. But Gabriel seems unemotional in a way that feels ferocious. He's unemotional because he's a lion who's gonna kill. He's on the prowl and he's gonna kill. But I feel Kanoa understands all of Gabriel's mindset. He just has a certain, calm about his understanding.
Yeah, I think that there's a seriousness that occurs with all of these top 10 guys that, again, they would do the end user a favor by sort of getting into that part of the game.
Totally. We were talking about surfboards made for specific waves earlier.
Yes.
Will we ever see a surfboard shaper kind of come up and become famous next to a wave pool? Like a shaper coming out of Waco, a shaper coming out of Palm Springs.
No, that'll never, ever happen, ever.
Could you imagine?
Although the land is cheap there, you could build a factory there for relatively cheap, probably.
Yeah, but you need to fund the factory with surfboard sales.
Yeah, I don't know. You know
Like
what?
a wave pool specific line of boards that just work that much better.
Never say never. By the way, I've found some information on the WSL going into Hawaii with regards to the health and safety of the people here. And I'll just read this. The WSL has worked with medical experts and state and county officials to help ensure that the Maui Pro presented by Roxy is safe for athletes, staff, and community. To help prevent large gatherings, the competition is being staged as a non-spectator film production. That must be the way that they have to, like, on the permit call it. In addition, the WSL requires multiple COVID-19 tests for athletes and staff, daily temperature checks, which I hear are useless, physical distancing measures, minimal personnel on site, and frequent disinfecting of common surfaces. They'll be wiping down the cave at Honolulu. These standards were developed using guidelines from the World Health Organization and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and are in place for the entire film industry in Hawaii. So they're using it as a film. That's how they must have pulled the permits for this.
Yeah.
It's a film thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Scott, our must-see moment is Wade Carmichael. You got anything else?
Do you remember that kid that flew to Nias from South Africa and just got the most insane barrel ever?
The 13-year-old kid?
Yeah, his name was something Hall.
Flew by himself without his parents.
Yeah, and he just got the most ridiculous, I think it's Kai Hall, is that right?
Sounds familiar, yeah.
Anyway, he was the winner of the Barton Lynch Blast Off Video Challenge. Kai Hall, he's the most valuable player, the MVP. And in Barton's words, he said, this motivated young South African Kai Hall chased the swell to Nias to get back his best tube lead, and he did just that with the ride of a lifetime that took him to worldwide notoriety. The fact that our event contributed in motivating Kai and driving him to the greatness is what we are all about, and why I couldn't go past Kai for most valuable player. That from Barton Lynch of the BL Blast Off Video Challenge. So Kai Hall won the deal there. Most valuable player.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. How can you beat that story?
Exactly. So anyway, yeah, my must-see moment is that Wade Carmichael bit I saw in Stab. It's pretty amazing.
Mint. Well worth watching. And by the way, I was going into 2021 season I thought about Wade Carmichael prior to that video, and I was like, Wade's kind of like, I don't know that he has a place in the modern era. I watched that video and I'm like, well, Wade could win a world title. Like, Wade is gnarly, and that style of surfing is timeless, and it's undeniable. You watch him do 2 of those turns and it's an 8 every time.
How would Wade do it? 2 to 3 foot snapper rock. There's actually some great snapper rock footage in that clip.
Yeah.
You know, those draining barrels that have the foreground has the white water and the people walking by. I'm pretty sure that's snapper.
We've seen him there, and he does really well there. And again, if you want to win a world title, I can guarantee you a world title. Get 2 8s in every heat for the rest of the season. Like, that'll do it for you. And Wade can do that. 2 turns, going right, going left, 2 of those power hooks are enough to get you 8s anywhere in the world. I mean, obviously Chopu and G-Land, it's going to require him to know how to ride the barrel and pipe, but for the most part, you know.
Do you think his weakness is backside tube riding?
Yeah, 100% it is. And I've never seen him in bigger barrels, period.
And is that more because we haven't seen him in that?
Yeah.
Because to me, we don't know if or if not, you know, like, to me, that's only his weakness because we haven't seen it. And I could easily go, oh shit, that guy actually knows he's actually did yoga this morning and can pull it off.
He doesn't look like the kind of guy who would fit in a backside tube.
Exactly. Just imagine when he's 40. He's going to be kneeboarding.
That Johnny Boy Gomes stance that is just like, you look like you're
I love Wade Carmichael.
It's like
they call him a Boca Jesus or something like that.
They do, yeah. Oh, I hope, like, look, if the waves are big enough, anybody could fit in a backside tube. So,
Yeah.
so hey, Duke of the Week, surf photographer and warrior poet. Is it Marty Teulemans?
Yes,
Is that how you pronounce it?
I believe it is.
I've only seen it in print, so I've never heard it pronounced. But surf photographer and warrior poet Marty Teulemans has died of kidney failure.
Oh my God.
This is news as of yesterday. Marty was a man. This is Derek Riley's words. Marty was a man of indeterminate age whose flamboyant behavior, driven by his mental illness, helped create a sort of cosmic legend. Minutes after I had sold a painstakingly restored vintage station wagon to him, I looked out the window of my office to see the 40-year-old Valiant mowing through the company's flower beds, the compact Dutchman's grinning face only just visible above the oversized steering wheel. Tim Baker also shared a story, and he said, quote, "He took the two best surf shots that I ever had of myself, and knowing full well that no one was ever going to pay for anything for shots of an intermediate level surf mag editor, he got prints made and then he gave them to me out of pure kindness. Every interaction with Marty was memorable for his colorful cosmic raves, but there was always some profound truth underpinning them. It can't have been easy being Marty with his wild swings and his surreal worldview. You'll be missed, Marty, and you made surfing more colorful and fun for a ton of surfers."
Oh, that's great. And again, one of those guys, that one of these wicked, wild, fun, colorful characters that makes the surf world and the surf culture so vibrant, and there's many of them, and they're great.
For sure. And actually, now that you said that, I'm going to read what Nick Carroll wrote about him too, because Nick Carroll's was really kind of funny. He said, "I'll never forget Marty rolling up to our family front door back in 1976. Tom and I were innocent grommets, and the Cosmic Pygmy," which was his nickname, "the Cosmic Pygmy was one of our early encounters with the sort of incredible humans who dwelled in the realm we were doomed to inhabit for the rest of our lives. We went out in front to meet him, and he bowed. Then began a kind of ritualistic movement, a dance, if you will, swinging his hips around like an Indian yogi. 'Do this,' he urged. 'You'll open up your chakras.' The smell of patchouli arose and wafted across our lawn. Our 80-year-old grandmother, who lived through 2 world wars and a depression and was now engaged in raising 3 grandkids on a foreign shore, was entranced by Marty. 'What an interesting person,' she said to me later. She was totally right." So.
Well, that's, too bad. I'm sad to hear that.
Rest in peace, Marty, Duke of the Week. I mean, his images, it goes without stating, but his images are iconic. You start looking through some of his photos and you're like, that became the photo of Michael Peterson. That became the most iconic shot of Snapper at the time or whatever.
Yeah.
So, So rest in peace, Marty.
All right. Well, anything else?
Scott,
How about,
I was going to say, I'm not sure if Neat Essentials still has those Primaloft jackets. I should have checked with them, but I got 2 of them last week that I'm going to be giving as Christmas gifts. So that promo code there, it's a lightweight, there's no down in it, but it looks like a down jacket without the down actually in it. Just like a lightweight, really warm, but also you could wear it on a cool, on a not super cold night. Those are available on Neat Essentials. The promo code is SPIT, and you get 30% off. Our California Neat Essentials HQ is moving locations, so they're in the move, trying to move less inventory, and that was something that they had plenty of. So grab that for 30% off for yourself or for a gift for the holidays. And
absolutely. Neat Essentials. Naked Vikings fins would also be a consideration for a gift for yourself or for a surfer in your life. And of course, Surfers Are the Worst t-shirts. And we might even have some Spit Podcast t-shirts before the whole deal's over. And
I have stickers that are ready to be picked up too, like a bunch of stickers with the Spit Podcast in the Fast Times at Ridgemont High logo.
Sweet.
So we'll throw those in. And also thanks to everybody who has been subscribing. We're getting a steady trickle every single day. And so that is going to go a long way towards supporting our efforts, building new content, and being able to get more people involved and do a lot of the tedious work that simply we're not good at. We need graphic designers. We need editors.
Yeah. Thanks in advance for subscribing to the Spit podcast. We appreciate it. And the Survival League, I'm going to sign up. Again, the promo code is SPIT. So David and I are going to sign up for that. And so consider that after you listen to this, go sign up.
I think we got 2 new subscribers while we were recording this show, Scott. And one of them I'm going to give a shout out to. If anybody wants to drink amazing, arguably top tier Santa Barbara wines, look for Dragonette Cellars. No joke. Like top tier Santa Barbara County, Dragonette. I've been drinking them for a decade since they started.
Maybe I could send some wine to some of my family members.
Use Dragonette. Go to their website, Dragonette Cellars. The reason why I mentioned them is their winemaker, Brandon Sparks Gillis, just signed up as a subscriber to our show.
Cool. Thanks,
so
Brandon.
Brandon's lifelong bodyboarder. I knew him from the wine business and randomly ran into him at the pier at Huntington one day, like both wet in our wetsuits getting out of the water. I was like, what are you doing here? He's like, I'm selling wine in Orange County. Like I'm down here doing a sales call, and thought I'd get a few waves before going to High Times in Newport. So yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, until next time, David, adios and aloha.